So maybe Matthias, you have the first presentation today. Could you maybe sum up what is important for you in constellation with new partners? So what is like your go-to-market with partners? What is important for you in this case?
Of course, in the first instance, it's of course quite important to have a good ecosystem because the field, also what we saw all today, coming from the field level, what connectors do we need, going to the IoT, to the gateway, to the cloud, there you have not the capabilities in one company to serve all different kind of fields. So you need to have a good network to take what you need additionally to your own capabilities to get in the end a successful transformation. So that's quite important, and that's why we are all sitting here having these networks to exchange, to learn from the other colleagues, to get us into an even more successful company and driving digitalization to the factories.
Okay. So Joachim, your presentation was right after that. So could you kind of sum up why it's important for you as HARTING to work together with partners and maybe to go into the concrete details what Matthias just mentioned?
Yeah, so I think what we have heard is that digitalization is something which needs partners, and it starts from the data. Yeah, so everything what Microsoft is going to analyze, the data must come somewhere from, and yeah, HARTING is, so connectivity plays a major role, and especially the physical connectivity plays a major role. That's a special field of HARTING, and this is why, yeah, so different companies are sitting here, which are in general far away from each other, but considering the overall transformation, we're close together.
Yeah, okay. And then it's, of course, about the data analytics, but also talking about new topics you just mentioned in your presentation. Why is it important to be here with Schaeffler and HARTING, and what is kind of the partnership vision behind from Microsoft's side?
So in order to make these digital projects a reality, I think the combination is going to be key, right? We're always going to have hybrid environments, especially on the shop floor and the factories. You will not only send all of the data to the cloud, you will always need connectivity. You will also need to connect the different machines and the different sensors. And then really have the flexibility to identify, do you want to run the workloads in the cloud, or do you want to execute them locally? And so therefore an ecosystem is extremely important in order to make these new IoT and OT use cases real and really to drive productive implementation. We have done so many pilots and MVPs in the last years. Now it's really about real implementation. So
yeah. Okay, so Matthias, maybe to hand over to you again. Because in your presentation you went through different use cases, you talked about the vision of Schaeffler. Could you maybe give some best practices, how that's working from a practical side? Because it's not that easy for everybody, as some companies are already starting, some are just thinking about it now. So what are the best practices you could share from a Schaeffler side by setting up this infrastructure and even the vision?
So of course it's quite a big field because you need different capabilities, you need technology, you need a certain budget, but also the people who are driving then the transformation. As I mentioned also in my speech, it's pretty important that digitalization is happening within the plants. So the colleagues in the plant, they have usually challenges which they would like to solve, and therefore they need technology, data, and also the right tools to work with that. So how does that go on our side? We have a clear program, first instance, to push our connectivity into the plants, but now that's turning more to a pull because we have a critical mass of machines already connected. We see the use cases which we can share. The colleagues can share this across the plants. They have certain budget to further connect, but now they are moving more to a pull, so that the number of machines connected, the use cases, and also the value is increasing tremendously all in one platform. So that's pretty easy for our plants, even if you look to India, to China, to America, so they are all enabled easily to connect machines and get further use cases running in their shop floor. And that's what we are every day working on, how we can even make it faster to acquire data from machines, how we get them the right tools to work easily with it, because you see all this complexity, so you need to take out complexity and make it easy for somebody who's new in a company to work in this complete ecosystem.
Yeah. Now you're talking on the one hand side about use cases, on the other hand side side kind of about connectivity. Would you say that the use case is coming first or the connectivity? Because that's always kind of the question, where do you start? Do I start with infrastructure and connectivity, or do I start with the business case and the use case?
It's a good question. In the end, you need certain use cases. You need to show the value, but then you need also a real push to drive connectivity. But not only a single connectivity, so one use case, one connectivity. In the end, you need one connectivity for certain use cases to run them, because this connectivity will be done only once in the current time and not in 10 years. So the connectivity needs to start now. So it needs to go hand in hand. So without connectivity, you will not have a use case, but without use case, you will also have no connectivity.
Of course,
so, and this needs to scale so that you say, okay, after a critical mass, you go and say, now I want to connect more machines, build the right infrastructure, and then you will even get more and more use cases. And then the number is increasingly.
And perhaps just to add, I think there's not only one hero use case which is justifying the overall platform investments, but I think it's a sum of dozens of multiple use cases which you need to implement in parallel in order to justify these platform and connectivity investment costs. I think that's definitely something which is quite important now.
Of course, and that's what when you see presentations like 4 or 5 years back, then there was like this millions of savings you will get if you do digitalization.
Yes.
But you will not get it from a single case. You will get it if you have multiple cases deployed on one machine to serve the users and give them in the end the return.
Yeah. And Joachim,
one question I have, so because you showed a lot of success stories for the use cases, just from daily life, everything went well, or were there a learning curve, or?
Of course, it's not like going very smooth. Even if you have a strategy, you need to get the people behind, you need to get them on board, you need to get them trained, and the technology needs to run stable, because if you see Message Broker, you see our technology, but who has proven this over thousands of machines? Even if we have capabilities since 2004 connecting machines, it's still to run this stable, because this MES needs certain feedback loops. You need to have the steering from the PLC. So there it's really not working smooth all the time. So we are trying to make it easier and better and learn from failures.
Yes.
But it's not that it's just running. Even if you have a strategy, the transformation happens on site, and the plants need to really buy in on your idea, and you need to help them, support them, that they can really drive this.
Yeah. And you
but it's a long way.
Yeah, you just showed that graph, which is going up from like 5,000
machines connected.
Yeah, and there are, but more machines are coming, right?
Yes, and you see there's not only more machines, so you see the data throughput to all the machines. We see also the deployed use cases and the numbers of machines. That's also where we are triggered, and this is one we want to increase heavily, but not just because we want more data or more machines connected, because there's a certain value afterwards coming, because we have this machine connected, we know you can deploy 3 use cases on this machine, and even further ones which we still don't know for the future. That's the basis you need to get. And of course this pull effect from the plants, that's pretty important. That's what we figured out at Schaeffler already, and we help also the external customers to go on this same journey.
Yeah, and what I would like to add is, so the pull effect from a machine operator, from operator of complete machine parks is very important, because we deal with device manufacturers at HARTING. They sell to machine builders, and then they go to the operator of complete machine parks. And what we typically face is that the machine builder is thinking about, okay, which is now the value? Yeah, if I digitalize my machine, if I make the data available, many machine builders think, okay, now I need to have a certain value for this machine, and this must be cost efficient and so on. And but from you, we learn that the overall value is given in many cases in those ones, but also if just the data is available, and you could create your use cases in your plans. And I think that's very important to understand.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, the key, because you as HARTING, you don't know the use cases of your end customers, right? Because you're talking to the control or manufacturer, then you talk about the machine builders, and then these guys are talking to like end customers. So it's a whole area, ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. And what we need to say is that the brownfield which we have today will still exist during the next couple of years and years and years, which is reasonable. So means all those special solutions, I would call them, to get the data will not disappear. So this will continue for sure during the next couple of years. But anyway, we need to start at a certain point to build up at least the new machines in a way, in an infrastructure that in the future everything is becoming step by step more easy. Yeah. That's very important. Yeah.
I mean, just to add one point, I mean, we spoke a lot now about technology and about use case and monetization, but I think one key part is also the humans, the people from the different teams which are coming together, right? And which also need to get the right mindset in order to understand the value that we are not going to replace the humans, but really having technology and use cases to support their daily activities and their daily lives. So I think this change management perspective, very often I think that needs to be also established top-down, but really get the companies in the direction of the thinking that training, readiness, education, and also talent development, these are critical components which need to go hand in hand in order to make it really happen.
Yeah. How do you deal with that on a Schaeffler side? Because I guess you started with a few machines, then 100, then the first 1,000. I mean, that's a curve, even though for a change process in Schaeffler itself, right?
So within Schaeffler, so originally this whole connectivity push started strongly from a maintenance perspective. So they had already certain use cases how to optimize their maintenance processes. They know when the bearing go out of lifetime, when compressed air leakage detection is detected. So that's what the maintenance were starting. So they were the first use cases. Now we have a big catalog only in the maintenance use cases, how they can optimize themselves. And then this went more through all the different users. I want MES, I want real-time process monitoring, and that's what we brought all now to one platform. But of course, this enablement, so technology and people need to work close together. So the technology needs to be easy, but we need also certain training for our users for the technology. And but still the knowledge so far, what I experience, we have in our plans now digital coordinators, so who are really coming also from different companies who had already experience more in the digital world, and they are working closely with the maintenance colleagues, with the production technology, with the sustainability engineers, and they say, okay, what are the activities we need to have? They know about our technology, and they say, okay, now we build a cross-functional team to implement the hardware, to get everything configured, because you need to work with the PLCs and the sensors. So that's what, of course, our maintenance team is doing. And there you see already a strong knowledge increase, that they ask you very, very specific questions. So 2 years back, there was maybe just the maintenance team who were taking care, but now it's really like more broader. And these questions are really like, okay, you check, and then I need really to check myself how we can fulfill their needs, how we can get them now the data in the right structure, so that they can directly work with that. So
but I mean, that's coming by the first projects, right? You do the first, you do the second, and then you have solutions ready where people are saying, okay, how could I implement that? And that's coming by the first pilot projects, right?
And of course, they are building themselves also via platforms like yours, like IoT use cases. So they see and they go on different podcasts, they go on YouTube, so they check out what are the possibilities, and that's what they bring in. They say, here's the problem, the manager, the segment lead, they come, they see problems, and then they try to adapt the technology and get more and more trained their knowledge, and then they implement and implement and implement.
Yeah. Do you have many companies who don't know their use case yet? So who go into a discussion and say, okay, what is the possibility? Or are those questions always coming from a technical side, or are people talking more about use case? You see that
both,
because you're in a hybrid situation. You have, as Schaeffler, of course, you're a production company, and then with Schaeffler Digital Solutions, you're now offering that to the market. So you see both there?
Yeah, both. So of course, some customers, they know quite well their use cases, so they want a specific tool. This goes then from plant to plant. So because they do internal meetings, they also show this to their colleagues. So and then you come from plant to plant. Sometimes they ask you more for technology. Sometimes they ask you more for use cases. But as we have so many use cases in-house and further develop our software based on the customer needs, we have also a lot of external customers who give us more input to make our products even more better and get them easier to work with them. So that's what we have on both sides.
Okay, and how many of these use cases are, for example, related to HARTING? Because now you're thinking of, do kind of your factory of the future, you want to implement maybe new technologies. Joachim, you just showed us what HARTING is doing there. So how many of these use cases are relevant to work with partners like HARTING?
So of course, on a daily basis, as also you mentioned, the brownfield is there. So there are some HARTING connectors already established, and we need to work with the brownfield. But when we look into the future, this brownfield will be connected now, and then in 5 to 10 years, there are coming newer machines, which are built today, and they need to go on a further standard, because right now you have sensors, you need to have this different plugs, you need to bring this all customer specific together to make sure you can let a use case run. So if we look into a single pair Ethernet, if sensors directly can be connected without evaluation units, they are smart enough and they go directly via our gateway out, and then you save also some more infrastructure points, and you can directly make the bridge from a sensor basically to a cloud infrastructure. So, and that will be of course more this future scenario, what we also see, that this brownfield, what we have today, will be more standardized version, how we deal with, for example, OPC UA is quite rolled out in a lot of plants, so that you and also machines, so that you can easily use the data already, and maybe you have your own systems, maybe you use from a certain vendor, then tools which can really integrate it and can work together. So this is of course where we see already in the future then a stronger touch point.
Yeah, exactly. And what we have to do from HARTING side, we need to design in some new technologies, of course, like connectivity and other things for SBE. At all the different device manufacturers, like, for example, SIG for sensors, IFM, and the different companies. Then those devices will be used, must be integrated in machines. So they have to convince the machine builders like DMG Mori and all the different tooling machines and whatever you are using. And at the end of the day, it's coming back to you, to your plant, who will finally make use of it. So means we as HARTING, we are I would say an enabler to do this, but some steps below, right? So, but that's how we contribute.
So you need the enablement of the people, you need the enablement of the connectivity, and then of course the data analytics and the software behind. Max, I just want to add maybe a critical question, because you talked about the metaverse and you talked about great use cases which are happening there and which are on the roadmap. Does every machine builder have to start with that now, or is that something which is more for, I mean, you mentioned that, but how does I as a machine builder have to deal with kind of metaverse topics?
So obviously Microsoft is a technology company and we are going to shape the future, right? So the future starts now, and I think it's important to think about the new possibilities, especially in Germany, right? Where we have so many great experts, from the people, from the human side, but also from the company with a lot of tradition and expertise. And if we blend it now with the digital capabilities to analyze the data and get value out of the data, I think that's going to be very, very powerful also in the medium and long term to establish really also innovation here made in Germany. However, obviously, I don't think that every machine builder needs to implement the industrial metaverse today or tomorrow, but I think it's important to understand the concept and the new possibility which will be enabled. And so then everyone can pick the different areas which are most useful, and it's a Lego box, right? So you can build on top when you need it. So I think based also on the market demand, and then obviously like companies like Schaeffler, if they see the value out of the data, you can use AI, you can use visualization on top. So this is something which will grow over the next years, perhaps even also decades. So.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, it's kind of a technology, it's a tool which you could use if you have the use case. So when you have 100 or maybe 10 use cases and one of that is what you presented, then it's a...
Yeah, but obviously also with new technologies, with OpenAI, because that's such a hot topic right now with ChatGPT. So that is actually quite also cool to see how you can digitalize the maintenance books of all of the different machines which machine builders have generated, and you can search and digitalize it on your fingertips within seconds, right? So I mean, they are complete disruptive new technologies enabling also highly innovative use case and really helping the humans not to study all of the different paperworks, but really understanding, okay, what is the information which you're actually looking for? Huh?
Yeah, of course. Are you at Schaeffler using those technologies already, and do you see the value out of these for example, use cases, what Max just presented?
So of course we step by step adapt new technology. We try out different things. Of course, right now I'm more focusing on how do we get the connectivity done, what are the certain use cases we are doing. But of course we are also having a strong partnership with Microsoft, working there close together to use Azure Cloud and also different services. So as soon as there's coming a challenge and new technology is available, we are trying them out in certain pilots, and then if they are stable enough, we also work there on rollouts, not even in production, also on higher level in IT. We have there also digital assistants who support our colleagues who are working with ERP systems and so on. So these are of course things where we all the time try, not only in operations where I'm located, also across this how we digitalize our HR processes, finance processes, controlling. So all these kind of things we are also working there strongly together then with partners like Microsoft.
Yeah, that's great. So you need the enablement also on this side, so do you have any best practices to share while implementing those kind of use cases? And because you're working with thousands of customers day by day, do you have like best practices to share how you could go this way if you want?
I mean, there's not one common way because that would be easy, and then I think we would also be a little bit further regarding implementation. But I think there are patterns which we are seeing, right? So understanding from the monetization side, what do you want to do with the data? I think that seems to be one very critical component which you need to start in the end. And then also flexibility from the technology side to understand, okay, where do you want to run your intelligence? And I think to be able and flexible to run it in the cloud, but also run it on the different edges, I think that also seems to be one of the critical success factors to really build an open ecosystem where you have different hardware partners, where you have different innovation drivers, also leveraging really startups, bringing their IP in the game. I think that seems to be something which is quite important. And then the buy-in of the top management is also something which is quite critical, that they also really understand how digital business models will also evolve, right? So you will not sell a machine anymore. It's more equipment as a service, which obviously on your P&L, where you need the CFO to understand how do you actually monetize that. So a lot of different things needs to go in parallel, and this is why it's so complex and taking quite a lot of time. So the technology, the use case, as well as the change management needs to go hand in hand in order to really make these projects successful.
Yeah, okay. So maybe for kind of sum up in the end, because our topic is like how we are enabled, or how is the enablement possible, can we maybe together sum up what's important and figure out the top 5 things I have to have in mind when I want to do this transformation? Because we heard a lot about ecosystem, different perspectives, so maybe each of you can just add 1 or 2 things to sum up these top 5 things I have to have in mind when I want to go this transformation.
So maybe the first one all the time, so when we started with digitalization, is of course use case first. So where do we have really savings? Because digitalization is not just because we want to have machines connected and we count the number of machines only. In the end, we want to have value for the production. That's the main purpose why we drive digitalization into our factories. And therefore, you need use cases and savings in the end. So I think that's pretty important. Besides the rest that we say, really, when you want to start with digitalization, please think about what is really the value behind for you, so that you can also, again, get easier investments also from the top management.
Yes, okay. So identify your use case, and this is something where you, of course, with Schaeffler Digital Solution can help, but also other ecosystem partners which are in specific areas who can help with that. So that's the first thing, okay. When I have my use case ready, what's next?
I would say with regards to connectivity as a basis, so it needs standards, because different machines, different devices needs to be connected, means this is not going with proprietary solutions, so means clear standards are mandatory. That's what we follow. So there is, for example, for SBE, a complete SBE industrial partner network, more than 60 companies following one and the same standard. So means from connectivity point of view, the standardization is really a very important point,
Yeah, so first thing, the use case, then we have the standardization on the shop floor, and this is also regarding to different partners you're working with, what we just mentioned with control developers, but also machine builders you're working with, because all of these have to follow one standard, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah, okay. So the third one would then be maybe from...
Probably to really have a modular, containerized architecture which can grow over the time based on the use case and actually leveraging standards, right? So I think that's something where you don't have to start with the most crazy reinforcement AI, but where you can really start with transparency, condition monitoring, then really have a modular containerized solution which runs in the cloud but also on the edge to give flexibility. I think that would also be...
So technology point of view, more or less, so that you say...
Yeah, building really on modular standards, which are actually really be able to run locally in the different kind of clouds, and where you have an ecosystem of also plugins and APIs to innovate also with startups and other partners.
Yeah. That's also something you're addressing at Schaeffler, right? Because you have different plans, different use cases. Maybe you want to deploy, so that's something you really have to have in mind.
That's what we are doing, right? That you bring more power to our edge, so where it's needed, that you can calculate, that you can get feedback. This is more something what you need more on edge, but for data storage and also work with the data, you can go then more to the cloud. So that's what we are also working in a hybrid mode, depending on the use case, what we are going to do.
Yeah. So now you, as Schaeffler, I mean, you're a big company. What are small, medium-sized companies are doing? I mean, you're working with even those companies. What is the use case when we take this third point? How do small, medium-sized companies deal with that?
So I would definitely say repeatability, right? So we need to go away from customizing and building everything from scratch, reinventing the wheel every time to really figure out, okay, what kind of like a repeatable ISV SaaS solution are solving specific pain points of the customers and really providing value for the use case. Identify these ones and then really identify it across the full value chain in all of the different categories and then implement multiple in parallel and make it easier. Time to market and time to implementation must significantly go down and complexity needs to be reduced. I think that is critical.
Okay. So then we have the third point. The fourth one, what was the cultural aspect? So you need to take the people with you. You need to do maybe kind of education to now set your skills up more, skill set of these different employees more on data, because now you're working on more data-related topics. So that was the fourth thing, right?
Yes.
And then
so
we need
transformation.
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay. And now the last point for today: how to enable what is important. Also.
I would say management commitment is very important because you need to have a long-term strategy. This costs money and people and time. As I mentioned, so it's not done just in a year or for next year or for this machine. So it means management, commitment, and the clear strategy of the company behind is one of the key points.
And of course, that the budget in the end behind. So because this costs in the end money, there needs to be a certain return on invest. But it's pretty important, and from us, what I see, so the management board is behind. They are tracked then every year, and also on a monthly basis, they want to see the result, how many machines are connected, what are you doing there. So, and that's really, the commitment is there, because in the end, when you spend the money, you have also the commitment in place, right? Not just saying, I want this, but then everybody needs to take care. In the end, in big corporates, is who is paying, then in the end, is also then giving the standards. So, and there you need to have the management behind, so that it's not just today I want it and tomorrow not, so that it's really committed over a certain time period, so that you can kick this forward.
Great. So maybe to sum this up for today, so the first thing we talked about was the use case, so that's something I can help with. So every use case, that's the first step you just mentioned. Then the second one is the connectivity. I guess, Joachim, that's something HARTING is a real expert in. And what you just mentioned about standardization, so that's a second really important topic. And then the third one, Max, you talked about containerization, you talked about even though standardization in kind of the cloud area. So that was the third thing. I guess that's where you are an expert in. And where, of course, Microsoft is helping. And the fourth thing, of course, that's an internal one. I mean, you have to enable your people. You have to do training, to educations. And then the last thing for today,
management buy-in.
That was the management. So, of course, that has to be something which is, has to be from top down, and I guess these are the 5 key points for today. And Joachim, maybe I could hand over to you because you have more interesting topics going on this week, right?
Yeah, for sure. So we have explained which role industrial Ethernet plays in the digital transformation of the production plants. So a very big role. We as HARTING, we are a connectivity expert for industrial applications, everything, especially outside of the cabinet where it must be safe and reliable. For Ethernet, and means we have 3 days this week in the Industrial Ethernet Week. Day 2 will be on tomorrow, so we deal with, we have great guests like a company Beckhoff presenting a very innovative IPC. We have company Fluke, we have E-Plan here, so on tomorrow we focus really on the installation connectivity for Industrial Ethernet. And then on day 3 we deal with the device design. We have companies like Analog Devices here, who are key to design devices based on, for example, single-pair Ethernet. So means the complete week is here in terms of industrial Ethernet. And I can only recommend, stay tuned, log in on tomorrow as well, because the partners and the contents will be great again.
Great.
All right. Many thanks and hope to see you.
Not that fast, Joachim.
Looking forward.
I'm entering the stage unexpectedly. Madeleine already learned that. Because I picked one question from the chat. I leave it over to you before I let you go. Who is answering it? I would guess could be something for Matthias perhaps. And the question is IoT only something for the machine builders or also for the component manufacturers? Because the component manufacturers often have problem to get access to the machine.
Yes.
Of course. So this depends really on what kind of components you are producing. So there are 2 kinds. One is the operation and one is the product itself. So when you look into the production, of course, it's a topic for you because Schaeffler is also producing components and systems. So how you can bring more digitalization, more digital use cases into your own production to optimize the processes, clear cost saving, cost cutting benefits. But when it comes to smart components, it's also quite important that you discuss with your machine builder in the end, what are the new requirements? For example, what do we need to have in terms of sensors equipped? Where can you add maybe further use cases and also identify a certain monetization strategy on top with digital services? That's not an easy one, of course, to generate a further value, especially if you're not building the complete solution. But in the end, you need to make sure that your components are smart enough to serve certain use cases which afterwards create more value, because then you are also set in for this next series, because that's pretty important when other competitors are going this way and making more smart products. It's important that you also keep track and not say, I keep my components as it is, and then you are more a price sensitive topic rather than an innovation leader. Yeah. So that's what I see where you need to think about in which area you are, that you really identify for you. Is it more cost topic or is it more external revenue increase? Yeah. So that's what we are also working on with different business units. So we are more focusing on production in my business unit, but we have also the same team for how we build smart sensors, smart components, which goes into machines, but also to end customer to deliver further value and add-on services.
Yeah. Maybe I could add something from our ecosystem, because we have great examples like SMC. They are coming more from a pragmatic side, like smaller components, but with a big value behind, because when you use those data to prevent leakages, for example, in the factory, or we have Vika or Egos. I just presented one example from this, and you really have the possibility to use more data out of your component, which was maybe at the right now used in different scenarios you don't know. So you have the possibility to use the data to create new services for your customers, and so that's definitely a way many people and companies are going now. Yeah.
Perfect. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for staying with us. Joachim already mentioned what you can expect for tomorrow, but the biggest thank you for all of you to take the investment to come here to stay on stage with us. For me, it means a lot, particularly in the setup we are here with all 4 of you in a row there. So thank you for that very much.
Thank you.
I think we're having a good lunch now, and all those guys will check their LinkedIn inboxes right away now. I will take care about that. And you will then probably get the answers quite fast. And I hope to see all of you tomorrow. Stay tuned, and bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.